Hey, what's up? Welcome to the first video in a new series that I'm starting, which is a devlog series of an app that I'm making called Fitful. Fitful is a fitness app, and maybe some of you guys know I've tried to stream the development of it, and I've done a little bit of it in the past. Originally, it was streamed here on YouTube, but I've decided I'm going to start moving this into a weekly devlog series where I do weekly update videos, kind of throughout my work on it during the normal week. It'll just make it a little bit better for YouTube, and I think it'll be easier for me considering that I don't get to work on it as much as I would like to. So here's the first video in that series. I'm not entirely married to the name Fitful, but essentially what Fitful is a workout tracking app that's going to be available for both Android and iOS. And considering that I am an Android developer, I figured I'd better just do the app the way that I think it should be done, write it in native, and I'll make the version for Android using Kotlin and Jetpack Compose, and then iOS using probably Swift UI. I don't actually have any experience with the iOS app, so this will be pretty interesting when I actually get to the iOS portion of this app. But I am an Android developer, like I just mentioned, so it should be pretty interesting seeing myself make an actual app for Android. Also, have I not mentioned, I don't own an Android device, so it'll be even more interesting that I'm working on an app for a phone that I can't even use something on. This first video is going to be pretty short because I'm not actually going to start working on anything in this video, but I will show you the designs and everything that I have worked out so far. And then I will start uploading these weekly, and then next week we will get our first full week of work on Fitful. So I went ahead and opened up Figma here, and Figma is the tool of choice that I've made for designing the app. So all of this stuff are things that I actually got done on a stream, although it's not necessarily set in stone, more or less a first pass on some of these designs, so I am going to go back through and clean up a lot of it. But for the most part, I think the overall structure I'm pretty happy with. I also kind of mentioned this before, but I'm going to really try and stick to the system design standards for each platform. So for Android, that means using Material U, which is Material 3 or the newest version of Material Design. And then for iOS, I'm going to use the standard iOS design system as well, which I think is called the Human Design Interface or Cupertino Design or something along those lines. Not sure, we'll figure it out when we get there because like I said before, I'm starting with the Android app first. If I go ahead and take you through some of these, we actually have a few different screens, and some of these I'm still figuring out. Normally what I would do when I'm designing an app or have an idea for an app is I would draw it out on paper first, and then I would import these into like my design software, and then I would work off of them. But this is all straight from my head, so I actually need to go back through and draw it, which I might end up doing sometime this week, which will let me clean up these screens a lot more. So if we go ahead to the first screen, this is just the dashboard screen, and you can see that it actually really doesn't have anything. It just has a title here and then some of the system stuff. At the bottom, you have your bottom navigation, which is just your standard Material 3 bottom nav bar. I pulled that straight from the Figma design UI kit that they have for Material Design. So I'm not entirely sure how it's going to turn out on Android because I actually haven't worked with Material 3 in Compose yet. So that'll be pretty fun when we get to it. Next, we have what I called the logged routine detail screen, which would be like in your dashboard, you have a card here. That would be one of the workouts that you logged, or maybe that'll be a portion of the screen. We might have some widgets up here that kind of talk about maybe water intake or personal stats or things like that. And then at the bottom, you might have your logged workouts. If you tap one of those cards, it should take you to this screen. Then this will just give you some of the statistics on that actual specific workout that you did. So it'll give you some general things like when you did it, how long it took, how much weight you lifted the entire time, how many records you set, overall how many things you did, how many sets you did, how many reps you did, things like that. I think I put in here like the highest weight that you lifted. That's just like the maximum weight that you lifted in that entire workout. So for legs, maybe 150 pounds would be like a squat or something, which I just realized that it actually doesn't have any 150 pounds on here, but this is very temporary and very placeholder. So we'll get to it. And I know I'm saying we'll get to it a lot in this, but like I mentioned before, this is more or less just introducing you to the project, and then we'll get everything figured out once we start working on it and, as the series goes on. Next, we have what I just labeled as like the muscle split, and this is really just how much you're lifting in certain muscle groups on these workouts. So for example, this was like a leg workout, and I just had like a certain arbitrary percentage of, it took this percent of your workouts did your back, and then this percent did your legs. Obviously for other workouts, if you're working out like your arms or your core, then it would have different muscle groups on there as well. But like I said, this is just arbitrary, and this would be dependent on the actual workouts that you have. And then down here, I have a scrollable list of the actual workouts in that routine here. So I call it a routine, something that you have different workouts for, and then each workout has different exercises for it. I could probably name these a little differently, which I actually might end up doing, but we'll figure it out when we get there. I'm really not in love with these cards. I'm actually going to redesign them. I'll probably add some elevation on it, make it look a little bit more like it's popped out of the screen a little bit, and then we'll clean up a lot of these. Right now this is very temporary, and I even left a comment here saying figure these cards out. They don't look as good as everything else, which is very true. They do not look as good as everything else does. I'm actually a really big fan of this first half, and then the second half I'm just, not a huge fan of it. And then I stopped at the individual workout detail. So this screen should appear when you tap one of these cards in the workouts scrolling list, and then this will give you specific statistics for that specific workout. And maybe this should be an exercise. I probably should rename these now that I think about it, but I have a few different things up here. I have like chips and stuff that go into, maybe this is like what equipment it requires, and then these other three are just like what muscle groups it works out. And eventually, if there's a lot of these, then maybe it's scrollable horizontally so that you can kind of swipe through it. But obviously that'll kind of pan out more when we get to the screen specifically. This more menu here, the 3 dots, that's going to be kind of like where you can maybe delete a workout, or you can reset it, or just other settings and things like that. I've not figured out what to do with that just yet. I'll probably spend some more time this week and actually draw on paper what I want the app to look like. But obviously a lot of these are going to be stretch goals as well, since the app should be more mature as it goes on, and we'll be adding more features as the app goes on, because this is more of a long-term project that I want to try and do. So a lot of this stuff is going to be much more further down the line. But I just have some general things here, like I want a little line chart to show you how much weight you've lifted for this actual workout. So like for a squat, it should have some diagonal lines, assuming that you actually increase weight, or down depending on if you decrease. Just whatever your actual weight is, that's what it's going to be. And then I have a table here that I want for the personal records. So like what the actual list of your personal records were for it. Maybe it'll have other things. You have your set records here. That would be, I guess, like a 1 rep max or whatever. I just put different things on here to kind of fill up space on the screen, to be honest. But I'm sure once we fill out a lot of this stuff more here for the workout cards, it'll make a lot more sense for what we can put for the individual workout detail screen. I have a few more empty screens down here that I have not started working on. My goal is to get the app somewhat designed by the end of this week, but things tend to change. So I have a routine screen, which I actually need to change the title of the bottom bar up here, which I'm going to do that right now. So I guess I ended up calling it a routine, which would make sense. You have your routine, and then you have your like workout or your exercise. I'm probably going to go with that. And this is just going to be a list of your saved routines that you've made yourself with your different workouts in it. And then when you click on one of the cards, or I guess when you tap on one of the cards, it'll take you to this routine detail here, where it'll show you all of the exercises that you have in there. Sort of similar to this, except it won't have as many statistics, because this won't necessarily be what you logged. This will be more or less like the actual detail for that routine. So the different exercises that you have, how many reps and sets you have for each exercise, things like that. And then coming down here to the bottom, we have what I put the profile screen on here, but we're not entirely sure exactly what the profile is going to have, because I'm not sure if I necessarily want to do authentication or not, because I think I just want this to be local storage on your actual device. It makes the most sense because it's a workout app and it's not necessarily cloud-based, although it wouldn't hurt to be able to save your stuff in the cloud if you move devices or whatever, but I'm not really looking into that. But I guess it's something I could take note of and then do later on. I actually left a comment here saying for this, since there won't be auth yet, which I put yet because I do have some plans, but right now we're not going to. I just had add different data such as weight and height. So this would be like your actual user settings here. Maybe if you want to change the theme of the app, if you want to change your name that displays on the app, things like that. I might have you create a profile when you create the app, or when you launch the app for the first time, and then this is what will show, but you can edit those details. And then this is where you put in your personal stats, your current weight, your goal weight, things like that. And then maybe when we add some of the features that I was thinking of later down the line, then we can actually start doing stuff. So this is what I have currently for the app. This is the state of Fitful as we see it here. I don't have any code written, but I'm looking at probably by the end of this week, after most of this app is designed, which I probably will do some work on stream as well, so make sure you check that out too. But after most of this is designed, I'll set up the Android repo and probably get maybe something on the screen, maybe a hello Fitful or something along those lines, and start working on setting up the to-do list for the actual version 1 or the alpha or the MVP or whatever I decide I want to do. That's how I'm going to do it. But for now, this is where we're at, and this is where we're going to be for probably a few days. So I hope you guys enjoyed the little micro update that I had for the first devlog, or the first week of the development of Fitful. By hopefully the next week, we will have most of the Android app portion designed, and then we will actually set up the repo, get some stories and some tickets set up, and then we will start developing the app. So I will see you guys in the next one.